Geshe-la says that although living beings' minds are filled with delusions, negativities and so forth, living beings or sentient beings themselves are not faulty. You are not faulty. Sentient beings are not faulty. Living beings have no faults. So I'm going to spend a long time now, 20 minutes or something, repeating this, okay? Repeating it, not the same words, but in different ways, giving examples and so forth. Because what we're trying to do is change our discrimination, change the way in which we perceive living beings. And particularly understanding that the faults we see in other living beings, well, we can say from one point of view it's our fault, but that's another's teaching. We can say the faults we see in other living beings are the faults of their delusions. Okay? So we can see faults, but not in people, not in sentient beings. We never consider a sentient being to be faulty in themselves. So the analogy that's given at the start of the section is with seawater. Seawater, we say, is salty. We say seawater is salty. But water itself is not salty, just water. We understand we can separate out the salt so the water doesn't contain any more and it's free, it's pure water. So we can do the same with living beings. They can do it to themselves, we can do it with ourselves. We can separate out our delusions, and we can separate out, in terms of how we discriminate others, we can separate out the person from the delusions in that person's mind. And then we don't blame the person, we don't pick on the person, we don't develop any negative feelings towards the person at all, because we understand this person is suffering. This person is suffering just like us from the great dictators of their delusions. So instead of developing a negative mind towards them, in fact what happens is we develop a compassionate mind towards them. We understand it's not that person's fault that they are behaving in this way. It's the fault of their delusions. Yeah? And this is how Buddhas are continuously thinking. They're always thinking about the faults of delusions, but never thinking about the faults of living beings. We do the opposite. Yeah? We're never thinking about their delusions. We're always thinking about their faults. That person's very faulty, they're a bad person. So when we see somebody, you see somebody getting angry, like I see it a lot in airports. Do you do that? At the airport, the anger, watch out, And if we're not careful, we can look at that person being very upset about something, and think, oh, a bad person, an angry person, an evil person maybe. But the enlightened beings, they never think like this. They never think that person's an evil person. They think, oh, how sad, how unfortunate. I wish that person could be freed from their inner poison of anger. Something like this. So their discrimination is completely pure, completely correct. We need to learn to discriminate in the same way, just like them. Understanding deeply that living beings have no faults. So the analogy of seawater, extremely helpful, extremely useful way of thinking. So, for example, I forgot this one. We've all got relatives and friends who from time to time experience sickness. Maybe you've got them now, and you probably have, they're experiencing some illness. And we don't think to ourselves, well, that's their fault. My friends developed, cold, flu, influenza. That's their fault. We don't think like that. We think, oh, they're suffering from a bad cold. That person has flu. I hope they get better soon. My friend is my friend, they're perfect, they're okay. But they've got this disease, they've got this illness called influenza, or whatever it happens to be. So we know that on a physical level. We understand, we don't blame people for their physical illnesses. So why do we blame them for their mental illnesses? Why do we do that?